So today's movie is Highwaymen.
Highwaymen.
And before I get into the spoilers, I'll give a brief non-spoiler review and score.
Yeah!
So this is a Netflix movie starring Kevin Costner as Frank Hammer and Woody Harrelson as Manny Galt. Both Kevin and Woody's characters are lawmen who are hired to track down Bonnie and Clyde. This movie gives the perspective of law enforcement during the Depression in the 1930s. Grade-wise for me, I enjoyed this movie. I thought it was well thought out, acted, had terrific visuals, and I enjoyed the many time period styles and vehicles. So with that, I'd give this a score of 6 on a 1 to 10 scale, meaning I'd recommend this movie. This movie is rated R, although I'd consider it a soft R. It has a couple cuss words in it, some gun violence, a couple bloody scenes, but those are pretty sparse throughout the movie. So that's the end of my non-spoiler review. From here on, I'm going to be diving a little deeper into this movie. So if you want those surprises that are in the movie, I'd recommend watching this part of the review at a later point after you've watched the movie. So if you're still watching, as I said, this movie follows the law enforcement perspective of ex-Texas Ranger Frank Hammers, who comes out of retirement to track down Bonnie and Clyde. The plot of the movie is pretty straightforward. Hammers is asked to help, and he ends up recruiting Woody Harrelson, who portrays Manny Galt. The movie turns into a 1930s western with near misses and the eventual shootout with Bonnie and Clyde in Louisiana.
Stick 'em up!
For me, the visuals in the shootout were the best part of this movie. Many times during the movie, I found myself enjoying the wide sweeping shots taken during this movie, and also the numerous scenes which involved early motor cars. In particular, I like the first Kevin Costner scene where they showed him right before he was recruited to hunt down Bonnie and Clyde. Cars wise, although I liked how they incorporated the cars into the movie, I found myself constantly worried about them getting dirty and wet, particularly during a chase scene in which Frank Hammers is in hot pursuit of Bonnie and Clyde that takes place on the road and then on a dirty field. This movie takes a more serious approach, but Kevin Costner and Woody Harrelson's characters blend together well, and they still manage to fit in a few jokes.
What the hell are you doing? You have two.
The end of this movie gives a pretty realistic visual of the confrontation between Frank Hammer's posse and Bonnie and Clyde, who are set up at the end of the movie by a friend who's trying to save his son. I also found the gun store scene entertaining because of a line Frank Hammer says.
What all are you going after if you need all this firepower? If you don't mind me asking.
Sure, I don't mind at all.
And how close this was to a couple other classic movies like The Terminator or Duco from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Frank Hammers almost has the same line as Arnold does in The Terminator.
That'll do it.
Which will do it?
All of them.
All of them.
Yes, sir.
So, which will it be?
All.
I may close early today.
And of course, Duco messing around with all the guns in The Good and the Bad, the Ugly was another Western type involving a gunfighter looking through a ton of guns. On the negative side, the only real downer I had for this movie was it was kind of long. It has a runtime of 2 hours 12 minutes, which I felt during this movie. So although the movie was good, I felt it probably should have been about an hour and a half kind of movie instead of over 2 hours. Finally, I just wanted to touch on a couple of historic things I noticed during the movie that I thought they could have touched on a little bit more, and also talk about Bonnie and Clyde and the fact that they didn't show Bonnie and Clyde's face until the end. So during the entire movie, you never see a clear picture of the outlaws until the shootout. During this scene, the director seems to put an emphasis on Bonnie and Clyde's eyes, which I think pays off to show the seriousness of the situation. I feel this is a good choice by the director in not making this movie about and glamorizing the criminals, but instead making them more or less the backstory and only showing their face when they had to. Historically, being a little bit of a history buff, I noticed they showed and talked a little bit about Bonnie Parker's limp, but they didn't talk about the reason why she was limping. If you didn't know, Bonnie Parker was involved in a high-speed crash with Clyde in which her leg was badly injured, causing her to have a defined limp afterwards. This was something I thought was a nice touch by the movie director, but since it wasn't really explained, the average moviegoer might have missed the meaning behind her limping as much as she was in the movie. Finally, again, they showed another historic event in this movie, but really didn't talk too much about it. The governor of Texas shown in the movie was Ma Ferguson. She was the first woman in the United States to be elected as a governor, and I felt they missed a chance to talk about this a little bit, which probably would have only taken a line or two to cover. So anyways, that's my review for this movie. If you guys enjoyed, please like and subscribe, and thank you guys for stopping by. Thank you.